All right. Thanks for joining us again. Michael Dunn here with another Mentor Match Chat. We've got Paige Mead. Hi, Paige. And Rob Hayes. How you doing, Rob?
Michael.
Good to have you guys with us, Paige and Rob, and good to have you guys who are out there listening and watching. So today we're going to talk about a subject that very few of you may not know is actually very near and dear to my heart. And we're going to talk about the top attributes of the top professional salespeople out there. And I'll just put it out there, I am fascinated by salespeople. So a lot of you may not know that. Those who know me may not even know that. It's something I keep very close to the vest. Of course, it's not close to the vest anymore, but I'm making it publicly known now. I have this affinity and fascination with salespeople. I'll call it, really, it's an admiration for salespeople. I'm a marketing guy, and normally we always think about the clash between marketing and sales, but actually I have a very strong, maybe fierce, if you will, admiration for salespeople. So I wanted to get together with Paige, obviously, who's a top sales recruiter in the dental industry, and Rob, who is a top salesperson and sales trainer, dare I say, Rob, sales whisperer. But anyway, and talk about what makes a top salesperson tick, because I've always thought that's not me. And so, really curious to have this conversation with Rob and Paige today. So that's the lens through which we're talking today. So first, I just want to kick it off, because I think maybe you guys in a previous conversation pointed this out to me, that when I sit there and talk about, oh, well, that's not me, I'm not a salesperson, I think maybe I'm wrong. I've heard this adage before, we're all in sales, whether we realize it or not. What do you guys think about that? True or false?
Kick us off, Paige.
True, and in varying degrees. And I think we're talking about, the different audiences that we all have in the process of growing a business. And, you either have external clients or you have internal clients, but yeah, you're selling. I think the word selling gets a bad rap. What we're really doing is influencing. And if you put it in that perspective, yeah, we are all influencing all the time.
Yeah, and in the conversation you're referencing, Michael, you went so far as to say that you had never done sales, which I challenged, because as a business owner, when you were running your consulting agency, you were very actively in sales. As an entrepreneur, you're selling at every turn. You're selling to the bank to give you money. You're selling to other stakeholders to participate and support and encourage your venture, and then certainly and most directly to prospective customers and clients. So yeah, I think in varying degrees we're all absolutely in sales. Whether you've got a kid at home that you're trying to influence and sell on doing what you want and need them to do, or if it's in a true professional sense.
Well said. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very well said. And I like this concept of influencing versus selling. Mm-hmm. Paige, I hadn't thought of it that way. So I think that's quite an astute observation. And going along with that concept of influence, and this may sound cliche, but I think, there's part of it too, where, there's the aspect of really helping someone, and this is very broad, helping someone to make a decision that's right for them, right? Mm-hmm. So this is not just about product sales. I mean, to your point of influence, or to your point, Rob, this can be helping someone within your own organization understand an idea better and be able to act upon it in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would add too that even within the sales function, the professional sales function, there are so many different types of selling that in some cases we think one kind of sales, inside sales or outside sales, or virtual sales, which is what we're all getting into right now in a massively big way. There are different types of sales that you're going to gravitate toward and others that you won't. For me personally, Cold calling door to door, face to face, very difficult. Like this, or over a phone, or at a convention, not difficult at all. It's a whole different experience, though, and how you approach it is going to have different technical aspects, but it's a very practiced, skillful activity. So when you think sales is not for you, I'm really curious what the picture that you have in your head is and how you're judging that.
Yeah. No, I think, I think for me and maybe others who are watching this and certainly maybe people who like myself are naturally introverted, and we can talk a little bit about introversion and extroversion as well. But I think for people like myself who maybe are more naturally introverted, one of the first things that always comes to mind is Glengarry Glen Ross, right? ABC or coffee, right? Coffee's for closers. And so, sales, always this kind of type A, hard charging, I'm going to make someone sign, right? Mm-hmm. Now, obviously that's not where, that's an extreme example, right? That's not where we, with our collective experiences here, mostly in the dental industry, find ourselves, but that's often the type of thing, at least, for some of us, I think that comes to mind. And so to some that may be a really exciting sort of thought. And then for others, for me, it's cringeworthy a little bit, that particular, thought that I've tried to describe here.
Sure.
But, you talked about different, inside, outside, when I ran my own consulting, cold calling was very difficult. But when you're first starting something, I mean, that's, it's hard to start without cold calling, so I really appreciate that comment. But I want to dive a little bit into, because we all have this collective experience in dental. You mentioned there's different types of sales, and you said inside and outside, but we also have, manufacturer reps, and we have distributor reps. Talk to me a little bit, both of you, because you have your experiences here. Are there differences, and what are they between, let's say, the distributor rep that we normally think of and the manufacturer rep?
Rob?
Yeah, it's we talked a little bit about this. I think I would be an abysmal manufacturer's rep for a large piece of capital equipment. My career has developed as a relationship-based salesperson. I value and enjoy the long-term connection to a client, to go deep in understanding what it is that they need and the challenges that they face, and then pairing them up with the right solutions that solve those problems. And that's not to say that a really successful capital equipment rep can't or doesn't do that. Their timeline is just accelerated. They are, as a proxy of the job, responsible for hunting, especially for organizations that sell direct versus through distribution. So they have to go hunt down those opportunities. They make connections as quickly as humanly possible. They run through their needs analysis with the client and need to sell that as quickly as possible so they can then move on to the next opportunity. So, and that's, I admire professionals who can operate in that capacity very well and at a high level, because I wouldn't do well in that kind of an environment. So some of what we've talked about in previous conversations when we hit record was knowing thyself and understanding what am I good at? Where do I shine? Where do I thrive? I've had those jobs in the past where it's a struggle to get up and get out of bed and get to work every day. You don't want that. We spend too many hours away from our families and working to do something that doesn't light our fire in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, I mean, there's technology specific jobs. There are, Paige touched on it briefly. We're all in the world of Zoom call selling now. So virtual selling is something we're all having to learn how to do well. But there are a lot of SaaS, software sales products that this is how they've always sold. It was phone based, and they would do a webinar style like this, and run through the ins and outs of the product, and demonstrate things that way. So yeah, I think you really have to spend some time understanding what is it that you enjoy, and in what environment do you think you would thrive. I've seen Paige work a convention floor, and there's nobody better, right? That's her jam. And others not so much, right? There's others that you see who look miserable being chained to their 10 by 10 square at the Chicago Midwinter meeting, right? So spending a little bit of time understanding and experimenting, I would advocate for.
Yeah, and I really think that's an important point. When I was writing my book this last year, I put a couple chapters in that is based on just that, knowing yourself and understanding the differences that each type of selling role in our industry actually requires. I think what I see in you, Michael, and I would say this for myself as well, the business development aspects of selling probably come a little bit more naturally to you. And those are different positions too. So that's where my vein of comfort is. And it has to do with how I think. You know, I'm always matching in my head. Where have I heard this need? Who can do that? Oh my goodness, what is the business that will be most blessed by this? I mean, that's just a function of business development. And I do swing my legs out of bed in the morning, excited about that stuff. But I've also had outside selling roles in my career that, man, stress level through the roof on that stuff. So it really does depend, like you said, Rob, on knowing yourself and being able to know enough about that type of selling role to make a determination. And some of that is experimentation. A lot of it is.
Yeah.
So I want to start going more towards this knowing yourself, because you both mentioned it, but you both have mentioned a couple of different words or phrases, and I want to see how we can, or if we can, juxtapose those together, right? So obviously, like I said, I'm approaching this very academically, just from someone afar, watching, right? I'm voyeuristically admiring salespeople. Okay, it's not dirty; it just is. So Paige, you talked about finding here's a need, and how can I match it, right? So that's kind of helping, right? Helping people and companies. Mm-hmm. And Rob, you used the phrase hunter earlier. Mm-hmm. So Paige, I'm going to ask you first. Can a hunter be a helper? I mean, how does that work?
I would say absolutely. I'm not even sure that you can divide those things up. Living with purpose matters. Whether you're hunting with a purpose in mind or whether you're helping with a purpose in mind, I think you blend them the best humans do. But I also would say, like in the business development conversation, I'm absolutely a hunter there, but it doesn't look the same as other places. And it also comes down to just what lights your fire. What are you jazzed by? It's going to be a little bit different for everyone, but I absolutely think that helping component is part of it.
Yeah, and I think maybe instead of contrasting hunter and helper, being a bit more literal and contrasting hunter versus farmer, we need both. Both, if you take it in the very literal sense, have different skill sets and different needs. In the context of selling, a hunter is someone who thrives on going out and finding new deals constantly. That same person may not necessarily thrive at long-term cultivation of relationships that a farmer would find incredibly rewarding, if that makes any sense. Both, I would argue, are very much helpers. They just help in different and unique ways.
Agreed. Yep. Well said.
Got it. that makes sense.